story by Goodnight Meadow, Through the Tornado Watch. Just today, I literally was watching a dark, low cloud, at least a mile wide, that was hovering over the neighborhood, while the rest of the higher surrounding clouds were moving fast. We had a tornado watch, and I was driving home from getting groceries, watching this creepy, low cloud that looked like it could start rotating at some point. I was thinking about stories of tornadoes that were said to be a mile wide and was shocked by how much this illustrated that possibility. It was just sitting up there, not moving, giant, spread way over at least a mile. Now, I'm not afraid of storms. I love them, in fact. If I didn't have kids, I would totally go chase tornadoes just to get a look at one touching ground in person. So I wasn't exaggerating the thought of this from fear. I was just kind of basking in the wonder of it. I pulled up into the driveway at home, which was about dead center under the massive mile-wide low-hovering thing, thinking of how I was going to get out and watch it for quite some time from the yard, since it obviously wasn't going anywhere. My daughter was in the passenger seat, and she was looking up through the window from where she could see. I didn't have a view anymore. Once I shifted into park, she said, "Whoa, that was weird." I got out to look up at what she had seen, and the entire thing was gone. Just gone. It had somehow completely vanished within a few seconds. In its place was the blue sky and white clouds breezing by. I was shocked. It was like we pulled into the driveway and entered an entirely different timeline or freaking universe for all I know. Makes no sense at all. With mouth open in shock, I look at my daughter expecting her to be shocked too, but she's walking straight into the house, back to me, without a word. That was even weirder. When I caught up to my daughter in the dining room and asked what she saw, she said it just looked weird. But it vanished? Completely? It makes no sense. The first thing I thought of when it happened was sharing the story. But I figured no one would believe me over the disappearance of a cloud, regardless of its massive size and the fact it had been right over my head. The other kind of strange thing was how fast my daughter just walked straight in when this happened. It wasn't like her. She even forgot the bag of goodies she had gone until hours later when she was asking me where it was, like she saw me carry them in. They were left out in the van where she had been sitting, but she seemed really lost and weirded out by it. Well, I know that people will always try to explain things away by mundane phenomena. In this case, weather phenomena. Can clouds simply dissipate? Yeah, sure it happens. Can a mile-wide storm cloud, presumably one that is reaching far up into the atmosphere, just dissipate within seconds? Not minutes, seconds. I don't think that is physically possible. In any universe, that cannot happen. Not just the clouds themselves. I mean, that's a lot of water to dissipate within the atmosphere itself. So, okay, the air is dry somehow. So all that water just infuses back into the atmosphere. And now it's perfectly sunny. It does it in just a few seconds. Well, no. That process requires an enormous amount of energy. The storm itself has tons of energy. It has to go somewhere. Energy doesn't disappear. It's always just converted. So, no. In my understanding of physics and weather, that is impossible. So the storm cannot just vanish that way. Which means the only explanation is either you hallucinated seeing the storm, or it's a different universe for you. But it would be for your daughter too? I wonder. She reacted to it, but not in a way that really fits with what happened. But it was like she saw something. Maybe she reacted to seeing you transferred into the new body? This would be the first time in a quantum immortality event, which is what I'm presuming here, seeing or having a witness to it, where there's some sort of effect, like a bright flash of light or something, where your soul zips into the other copy of you in a different universe. I don't think there's an actual visual cue, because often people do come into their other reality, their new reality, with a witness nearby, and that's never been mentioned before. And it's not always a case where it's a parallel transfer. Maybe it's just one person that's transferred over, not everyone in the same car or whatever, or they wouldn't be a witness then, because they also were transferred over. Getting muddy here. I think that is a real clue, though. Her reaction to something, the reaction wasn't as intense as it should be. But then again, you didn't say her age. I don't know how young she is. She was walking on her own. So if she's 5 or 6, maybe she doesn't really understand how incredible what happened was. Could be that. If this is simply a different universe, your daughter came with you as well, which is a good thing. I think you'd want that, although then you have to deal with the trauma of the original universe. Presumably the husband there, the father, lost his wife and daughter, which is just, it really is horrific in that sense, isn't it? Quantum immortality. That is one consideration we can't just ignore, because the husband doesn't know about quantum immortality, and even if he did, that wouldn't really soften the blow. Like, I know about it, but if I lost my mom or my friend or anyone, it would still be brutally painful, even if I believe they're still alive in a different context. It's not enough. Welcome, I'm Paul, this is Dave. Today I have 11 Glitch in the Matrix and paranormal stories for you. My favorite story has to involve specific weird sounds. Yeah. Don't forget to like the video if you feel so inclined, and let's get to it. Story by Mr. Skills for Real. Rotted Confusion. First of all, I want to clarify, me and my friend both experienced this, and both agree that we still have no idea what the frick we experienced. We weren't under any substances, and none of us have any mental illnesses. I am a scientific person, and I don't believe in paranormal events. I yearn for logical and natural explanations to these things. Lately, me and my friend have been enjoying visiting abandoned houses. 99% of the time it's chilly, as we're in the countryside. There are no squatters, and we're often the first ones to visit an abandoned place. After visiting dozens of creepy spots, I have never experienced any weird noises or whatever all these YouTubers all make out urbex to be like for content. A few months ago, we found a large, abandoned home with 3 floors and a basement. After scouting a little, we found that the only entrance was possible by going through the underground basement first, which had an opening in the garden. So both of us went there and started our little usual visit. When you first came down the stairs, you arrived in a main room with a concrete floor and walls. On the right was a staircase leading up into the abandoned home. In front, there was a continuation of the basement through a corridor with a large rotting wooden shelf. At the end of the basement were 2 other rooms. One of the rooms had a rotting wooden table and a dirt floor. We continued the normal visit to the house and left after about 20 minutes. And this is what made me and my friend lose our minds. We came back to this house exactly 4 days later with another friend. There was no sign anybody had been there in those 4 days. We entered the house through the exact same basement, and there was only one empty room and a staircase leading up to the house. No other rooms, no corridor, no rotting wooden shelf, no dirt floor, no creepy rotting table. It was just 4 concrete block walls, a concrete floor, and a staircase leading up to the house. There was zero sign of newly built walls to block off the corridor. All the walls seemed like they had been rotting there for years. My first reaction at the time was that we must have entered by a second different basement, and the one I had a literal picture of couldn't have just disappeared. But the house wasn't that big, and we did remember going down the same stairs, but somehow, now they lead to a completely different basement? What is blowing my mind is the fact that I do have a perfect clear image of a room that looks like it no longer exists anymore. And my friend and I remember the exact same thing, so it's not a Mandela effect or somehow both of us imagining rooms. To us, everything seemingly vanished from reality, along with a corridor and another wooden shelf, which, by the way, would have been extremely hard to move out of the basement without leaving traces. It's the only event in my life which I have accepted to be something I'll never be able to explain, and that just makes no sense, from any point of view. Hell, this is a really cool story, mainly because you have picture evidence for yourself, understanding not wanting to share it though, but yeah, I just think there's different realities that overlap us. Quantum immortality is the most excited expression of that, where we directly interact with it, with other realities. But I think it's entirely possible to, and this may actually apply to the last story too, where you simply see a different reality without physically being there. Or even, perhaps sometimes you can physically be there. Little cracks in the eggshell, where you can slip through temporarily, and then come back. Or maybe some people get physically stuck there. And that's also a pathway to explain doppelganger theory, if it's not just like a physical twin of the same universe. But I think it's almost like matter and antimatter, where there is no real difference except that the charge, and when we say charge, it's not a real property, it's just that they're opposite. Everything about them is the same, but they're opposite. So we just say different charge, but there's no real rational explanation beyond that's just how it works. They're different, but they're not. But if they touch, they annihilate each other. So my impression is, I think if you physically, like your body, not just your soul, go to a different universe where you're not from, and it's not as dramatic as antimatter, but I think you feel it, and other people feel it too. But that's just my gut instinct. Story by Choice Diver 9569. Hunter Valley, cloudy. Time: Thursday, 13th November 2025, about 6:30 a.m. Location: Australia, Hunter Valley region. Warkworth, Singleton area, west of Newcastle. New England Highway Road, about 15 minutes drive from Mount Thorley Yankole Mine. Here's the story. I, 24 male, was driving to work. It was around 6:30 a.m. again, and I was in bumper-to-bumper traffic, moving slowly. I was looking at an unusually small cloud in the sky. Don't worry, I could see the car in front of me from my periphery. This cloud caught my attention because it was unusually small, but I didn't suspect it to be anything other than a cloud. I was staring at this cloud for about 5 to 7 seconds, and then suddenly, quickly, over the course of probably a quarter of a second, the cloud collapsed perfectly into its center, and at the exact same moment that it collapsed into its center, a plane appeared from the exact center point and was flying normally. I stared at the plane for a while to see if it would transform again, but it just remained a plane until I couldn't see it anymore. The cloud was roughly as tall as it was wide, and it was translucent instead of fully opaque. The cloud was several times larger than the plane that appeared from its center after it collapsed. The cloud was stationary, but once the cloud collapsed, the plane that appeared from its center was flying normally. The plane appeared to be flying at the same altitude as any other commercial passenger jetliner. I don't think it was a hallucination or an illusion, and I have many reasons. I have no history of hallucinations. I have no mental conditions that cause me to hallucinate, nor do any of my family members have any mental conditions that cause hallucinations. I had not taken any drugs or medications at the time. I have been an entirely sober person for years, besides 50 milligrams of sertraline daily. I wasn't super tired or drowsy, and I had already been awake for over an hour by the time I saw it happen. And I wasn't feeling stressed out that day. It was broad daylight, no fog. The sky was clear, besides a few clouds, but this small cloud that turned into a plane was by itself and surrounded by only clear blue sky. Potential explanations that I don't really believe. This cloud was roughly as tall as it was wide, so it wasn't a contrail. I didn't notice any planes flying nearby when I saw this happen. I thought maybe the plane came from behind the cloud, but the cloud was so small that I likely would have seen the plane coming toward the cloud in the 5 to 7 seconds before the cloud collapsed. But this still wouldn't explain why the cloud collapsed so quickly, perfectly, and uniformly into its exact center. It was like it imploded. I thought maybe my eyes were unfocused at first, without realizing, but if that were the case, then the plane would have looked more like two planes instead of a cloud, and also, I would have realized afterwards that my eyes were unfocused. I thought maybe the plane sucked the cloud into its engines, but again, I likely would have seen the plane coming towards the cloud before the cloud collapsed, and even then a plane wouldn't suck a cloud into its engine so quickly and perfectly. I thought maybe it was a light glaring off the side of the plane, but the cloud was several times larger in the sky than the plane, and a glare looks very different from a cloud. Recordings. As soon as this happened, I went to ChatGPT and used the voice mode so I could tell ChatGPT what I saw with my voice while driving, not texting, but instead speaking. I did this partly because I was dumbfounded, but also because I wanted to record what I saw because I knew that if I didn't do so, then my future brain would have convinced me that it was a false memory and I was making it up. Then about 20 minutes later, as I was sitting in the car park for my job, I texted my friend Chanel to tell her what I saw. And then later that day, at about 1 p.m., I texted my pal Madeline to tell her the story also. I can't include screenshots of the text or my ChatGPT chat log for privacy reasons. So many other people in my life know about this, and the log of ChatGPT is still there. I am still open to the possibility that it was a hallucination, but there is no reason to believe that. Besides that, I saw a cloud turn into a plane. There is a military base in the area, and it's in the countryside, so I wonder if maybe it was some experimental military technology? Sounds bonkers, but then again, this whole thing is bonkers. Has anyone else seen this? Or does anyone else have any idea as to what happened? Story by Vinekis, 700 Nights Later. Gonna keep this short because it's nothing too special, but it still struck me as rather odd since I wasn't the only one to experience it. I bought this comforter and pillowcase set a while back, let's say roughly 2 years ago. For something like 700 days then, I've been laying my face on these pillowcases every single night. At least, I think I have. One afternoon, my girlfriend had me strip the bed to get everything in the wash. We men would seldom clean the bedsheets without womanly influence. We're dumb. By the time the dryer finished and I was pulling them out, she had just gotten home. I was standing there pulling the pillowcases back on the pillows when I noticed something that made me stop dead. 3 distinct, decorative ridges running down the side of one of the gray pillowcases. I just stared at it for a second. I said, "Huh? That's odd. Has this always had this?" No, it freaking didn't. I held it up and pointed out the ridges to my girlfriend. She looked at it, made this really weird face, and said she didn't remember it ever looking like that either. My first thought was to check the matching pillowcase, since it was a set for 2 pillows. I grabbed the other gray one, expecting to see the same thing, but it was totally smooth. So after 2 years of daily use, I suddenly have one smooth gray pillowcase and one gray pillowcase with decorative ridges that definitely weren't there before? It's been 3 years since that happened and we haven't brought it up again, but it still bugs me. How do you miss a texture change like that for 700 days? Story by Most Common Hauntings, always in Cobalt. I do repairs on sterling jewelry. I purchased a random lot of busted stuff to repair around 10 years ago, and I had a pair of enameled sterling silver earrings that were missing their wires. It would be an easy fix, but alas, they were exactly the same shape, size, same half-floral pattern under the enamel, except they were 2 different colors. One aqua, one cobalt. They have been in my box of random fix-it bits for years. I would run into them almost every time I sat at my bench to do repair projects. Every time I would lament how pretty they were and how easy the fix would be, except the colors don't match. I've owned them almost as long as I've been with my husband. He's seen the mismatched colors. 3 days ago, I was sitting at my bench to make some repairs, dug through my to-be-fixed box, came across them. Now the colors match. 2 cobalt. All these years, 1 aqua, 1 cobalt, and Monday morning it's 2 cobalt. So I lost my mind a little bit, and then I put wires on them. I've had other glitches happen within the last year, but this one is the first time it's happened with physical objects that I own, and also 100% corroborated by a witness. Story by Zen Vibe Snyder, Meows and Bubblr. A few weeks ago, we were having some strange weather. We have been bouncing back and forth between spring weather and winter weather, and we had a blizzard coming in as well as thundersnow. I was laying in bed, winding down for the night, when there was a huge roll of thunder that shook the house. I could feel the bed shaking and hear objects rattling. It went on for an extended period of time, longer than I normally hear thunder, but not impossible, I guess. I live near train tracks and a train goes through every morning, but this was nowhere close to the same noise, nor does a train ever cause my house to rattle. It's close enough to hear, but far enough away that it doesn't cause a loud noise or large disturbance. This roll of thunder had made me jump, because it was so loud and sudden. So, when my husband came upstairs a few minutes later, I had made a comment about it. He asked, "What thunder?" And I said, "The one that shook the whole house?" And he said, "I didn't hear or feel anything. Maybe it was a truck driving by?" I told him I know what it sounds like when a truck drives by, and this wasn't close to the same sound. Plus, it went on way too long for a vehicle driving by. I mention all this because ever since then, I've been having wild encounters that are making me lose my mind. Hopefully relaying these doesn't count as multiple stories, because I do feel like they all tie back to that one night. I have been hearing voices, footsteps, and whistling in the house. I've been hearing what sounds like my cat, who passed a few months ago, meowing through the house. And other people have sometimes heard them too, without me asking. Things that I specifically remember doing suddenly aren't happening. I remember emailing someone and having them respond to me, only to have them reach out a week later looking for my response, only to see I never responded. This has happened on multiple occasions. One morning I was grabbing a drink to bring to work. I was going to grab a Bubblr, saw that my husband had picked up my favorite Poppy, and specifically remember putting the Bubblr down, opening the box of Poppy, and putting a can in my bag. However, when I got to work, there was a Bubblr in my bag. It's just been a long list of things like this happening since that big boom of thunder a few weeks ago. It's making me wonder if parallel universes are a thing and if two collided that night. For additional reference, I do not drink or do drugs. I haven't had any changes in medication. I haven't had new stress or traumatic incidents, and I am not prone to hallucinations or memory issues. I'm certainly fascinated by all this, but also a little freaked out because nobody else I've talked to has been experiencing the same thing, besides the noises. Well, memory issues and all that, there's a lot of this story that could involve mental issues, but the fact that other people have also heard these weird noises in your house, and even the cat meowing, that is what solidifies it as probably all connected. It would be odd if there was this haunting sounding noise and the spirit of your cat around, and everything else that happened to you since the thunder crack that never happened according to your husband is all unrelated. So my gut instinct is just bleed through effect from different universes. It is so funny how the more I read these stories, the more almost everything connects back to multiverse theory. Every glitch, almost, is just, there's different universes. Sometimes we jump over there. Sometimes we are transferred via our soul. Sometimes our body. Sometimes there's cracks in the membrane. And sound waves can propagate between them and things like that. It's all a freaking multiverse game. And it's not perfect. Story by Moody Mickey. A donation undone. So for context, I did some baking yesterday. I live with my parents, and at one point we had 2 teal whisks, but for a really long time I only saw the slightly broken one. It had a small piece of teal plastic that broke off. Honestly, I'm pretty sure my parents got rid of the unbroken one because we didn't need 2 of them, and the slightly broken one worked better at stirring batter. The whisk I used yesterday was slightly broken, like it always was. My dad cleaned the dishes and put them away, probably early this morning. And, well, earlier today, I went to grab the whisk because I was planning to do more baking. And the teal whisk I found wasn't broken. I thought that maybe it was just a broken twin, so I asked my dad where he had put the one I used yesterday. He told me he put it in the exact drawer I found the unbroken whisk in. I can't find any other whisk, only the broken one. I checked every drawer it could be in, but I can't find the one I used yesterday. The teal, unbroken one that I found is the one that I hadn't seen in over a year. Honestly, it wouldn't be so weird if I could at least find the broken one. At least my family had 2 teal whisks at some point, so it could be explained if I could find the one I used yesterday. It's just that I can't find that one anywhere. And I could have sworn we donated the unbroken one last year when we went through the stuff in the kitchen. It's like the whisks swapped places, or we donated the slightly broken one a year ago instead of the unbroken one. But that wouldn't make any sense because I used the broken one yesterday. And my mom used the broken whisk a few days ago too. And months ago, when I was making Christmas cookies, not only was I using the broken whisk, but I even saw a bit more of the plastic break off. I really wish I had an explanation for this. It's just so strange. It could be a late April Fool's prank, but my family doesn't really do pranks, and I could have sworn we got rid of the unbroken whisk. It's just really weird. Story by Morbid Morag. Black Stars in Film. I was looking around the shops in an area I don't get to very often. So I took my granny trolley because I knew I'd buy too much in the unfamiliar shops, and I still ran out of space. So when I came across 2 box dolls I liked, I solved the problem by putting them in a flimsy plastic bag which I hung from a carabiner clip from my trolley. I collect dolls, not expensive or antique, just for messing about with. These were the opposite of creepy. Barbie clones, but good quality. I had plans that involved clothes swapping. Riding home on the bus, my trolley was in front of me, and I could see one of the dolls through the thin plastic. She had a black dress on, and I noticed the sparkles on her dress were star-shaped. I was trying to work out if her shoes were black, but the plastic wasn't quite clear enough. I got home and unpacked my trolley, and when I unhooked the bag with the dolls in, I saw that the doll that was visible was the one in the sky blue dress. Odd. But I just reckoned I must have put the boxes in the bag back to back, and the doll in black would be visible when I turned the bag around. Only one doll was visible, the one in sky blue. It was a really bright blue too, and the spankles weren't stars. I had been looking at a doll all the way home on the bus, and it wasn't that doll. It felt like a continuity error in the film. I love spotting those, but they're not funny in real life. I felt a bit chilled. Can't bring myself to unbox those dollies somehow. Story by Successful War, 2590. A box bed, a balcony, and a dog. So this is a regular thing that has been happening with me for quite some time now, and from the very first time, it's freaked me the freak out. Ever since I moved into my current apartment, I've had these frequent episodes where I simply cannot locate my dog. For context, it's a standard 2-bedroom flat, hall, kitchen, and 2 bathrooms. The beds are box beds that go straight to the floor, so there is literally no place for her to hide under unless she burrowed a hole into one, and she did not. It's not like she's a tiny puppy either, she's a decent-sized Labrador dog. Yesterday was a breaking point. I saw her just hanging out under the dining table. I went into the kitchen to get her dinner ready, and once the food was in the bowl, I started calling her. Usually she comes sprinting the second she hears the kibble hit the ceramic tink tink tink, but this time, nothing. I went back to the dining room to grab her, and she wasn't there. She wasn't under the table anymore. I searched the entire house, even going out onto the small balcony, an equally impossible place as under my bed. She wasn't there either, obviously. I was looking in the back of closets and behind doors, getting actually worried. I checked the attached bathroom one last time, convinced I must have missed her, but it was empty. When I walked back out into the hall again, there she was, just casually eating her food like she'd been here the whole time. This has happened several times now, where she just vanishes into thin air in a space where there are 0 hiding spots. I sometimes joke to myself that there's a pocket dimension somewhere in this house where she goes to nap, but I genuinely don't know how else to explain it. Has anyone else's pet figured out how to phase out of reality? Because I'm losing it. Story by In Stitches 631. One Crack in the Universe. Yep, okay, I'm losing my mind over hard-boiled eggs, of all things. Yesterday, I was in the kitchen making some hard-boiled eggs. Pretty standard stuff, using the steamer I bought on Amazon. Add water, done. Love it. When the timer finally went off, I pulled the eggs out of the steam basket into cool water to prevent overcooking. As the water was filling up, I looked down into the bowl and noticed that one of them had totally split open while it was cooking. It wasn't a small kind of crack, it was massive, roughly a diagonal split, at least a good half-inch long, and some of the egg whites had even started puffing out of the shell. Anyone else find that sight gross? Just me? Okay. I remember seeing it so clearly and thinking, great, that one's going to be a pain to peel. I left them in the bowl in the sink to cool down for a few minutes while I went to do something else. When I came back out to pull them out of the water, I didn't see the broken one. What the frick? I checked every single egg again very quickly, pulling them out of the bowl onto paper towels. None of them were even lightly dented or deformed slightly. I counted them. The exact same amount I put in the steamer was sitting right there, 5, but every single one of them was perfect. I've checked these eggs like 10 times now. I looked them all over under the kitchen light and ran my fingers over the entirety of every single shell. Not even the tiniest hairline crack, not even a mark. Smooth as a supermodel's skin. I know what I saw, and I will not pretend not to. I am not remotely ashamed or afraid to spill the beans. I saw the split, I saw the gross white part poking out, I saw the angle of the crack, everything. It probably sounds so stupid though, I know that, but I don't care. I'll tell the president if I have to. I told a friend about it and they just laughed and told me I was tired, but it's seriously messing with my head. How the hell does an egg just uncrack itself? Egg voodoo mystery before GTA 6? Story by Almond Enigma, a Zen clip. Today I decided I was just going to have a reset day and spend it meditating on my bed. Nothing fancy, just sitting there for the first 15 minutes, trying to stay mindful and focus on the sensations in my body. Feel each breath as my lungs expand. Feel every subtle vibration of the air across my hair. Feel my heart calmly pulse. If you haven't tried meditation, I recommend it. It's difficult to reach what they call the Zen state. It takes time and a bit of personal love. Believe me, you're worthy of it. Anyways, at one point, I went to adjust my arms and I guess I moved too fast or was too clumsy because I accidentally smacked the hair clip right out of my hair. I heard it hit, it went flying way out in front of me, totally cleared the edge of the bed, and landed somewhere on the floor. I was mid-zen, so I consciously decided, nope, I'm not getting up. In fact, conscious? I remember thinking that thought, but it was more like it was separated or pulled from outside of myself at the time. I didn't want to be tempted to clip my hair back up and break the flow, so I just let it be. For the next 10 minutes or so, I switched things up, lied down for a bit, but then I realized I was getting way too sleepy. I wanted to actually stay awake for this, that's important. Meditation is often conflated with deep slumber. It is not that at all. So I sat back up into my original position. As I'm settling back in, I move my hand around just to feel for my phone and make a mental note of where it was. Lo and behold, my hair clip is sitting right there, on the bed. Wait, huh? I literally climbed off the bed and checked the spot on the floor where I heard it fall, and there was nothing there. I don't understand how this is possible. I swear to God I did not move from that bed and I definitely didn't make any attempts to reach for it or pick it up. And no, people do not act unconsciously when meditating, like sleepwalking. I like this story just because of the meditation propaganda. I don't want to say propaganda, but just I've been trying to meditate personally, which is why I find it funny. You know, the DOP, the clip sort of moving, probably, pretty cool, but it's pretty standard. I just like the idea of meditation because I haven't been able to reach the Zen flow state. And I'm not a stressed out person. I don't know if people think I am or not, but I'm just pretty stoic. I'm happy, but I'm stoic internally anyways. But I can't reach the Zen state. I just sit there, close my eyes and think of nothing, but nothing else happens. I'm just thinking of nothing. Maybe I'm always in a Zen state. That'd be kind of cool. Who knows? But I approve the Zen propaganda. Now time for the jokes of the day. Last night, I asked my wife what she wanted for her birthday. She replied, a divorce. I wasn't planning on spending that much. I survived a fall without a parachute. I've also survived a winter, spring, and summer without one too. I think we all have. A programmer's wife tells him, "Go to the store and get a loaf of bread. If they have eggs, get a dozen." He returns with 12 loaves of bread. She asks why, and he says, "Because they had eggs." Yeah. If, then, programming language. What is brown and rhymes with Snoop? Dr. Dre. If you don't know, he's a rapper who rhymes with Snoop. My boss said he was going to fire the employee with the worst posture. I have a hunch it's going to be me. Gotta keep that back straight, huh? Video up here. YouTube thinks you'll like it. Check it out, and see you next time.